Welcome. My name is Jillian Tamaki. I am a local author, cartoonist, and illustrator. I won't linger on this much longer, but yeah, my latest book is Roaming there in the corner with my cousin Mariko Tamaki. I was asked to provide this photo of me in, I don't know, junior high-ish. I'm on the left there, visiting my mom at work at Whole Grain Fruit where she sold perfume. And also my crush, which I had to think about because I would never actually divulge my real crush because I'm still mortified from that, grade 7. So I was really thinking about, I'm like, okay, I actually have a big crush on that kid that was like Wednesday Addams' boyfriend in the Addams Family too, which I thought was very niche until I recently learned that is a very common sexual awakening for a certain kind of kid. Anyway, without any further ado, we're going to welcome Tegan and Sara. You're all here. It's going to be a fun, busy night.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
What kind of sexual awakening?
Do you remember Super Channel?
Yeah.
I would figure out when that was playing so I could watch it again and again.
Yeah.
Maybe there was also kind of a Wednesday thing happening too. I think, in all seriousness, I was like, I think it's because he liked her for her weirdness, not despite the weirdness.
Oh, I love that.
Too soon, but.
That's kind of how I felt about My Girl.
Yes.
Except I felt weird about Macaulay Culkin, but I think it was because I was like, he's this weak.
Non-threatening.
You know exactly what I'm saying. There was something sort of unappealing, but also sort of cute about him. And then I was like, but Anna Chumsley likes him,
Yes.
And then I was like, I want to be him so that she'll like me.
I have a hard time. We're getting way too into it quickly, but I have a.
Remember where I was like, oh, the last one was 2 hours, but we're gonna keep on track. You can't help it.
But I think I have a hard time sometimes. Now I realize, do I want to be with that person or be that person?
Yes.
Big question.
Yes. I feel that about the entire cast of The Sandlot.
There you go. Yeah.
Why did I watch that movie so many times?
When you were a kid, you don't feel that way now. Those are children now. So
No, it's New Kids on the Block, the cast of The Sandlot, League of Their Own.
Yeah.
All of my crushes were either I want to be like you so that girls will like me, or I want that older woman to like me.
That's how I felt about The Client with Susan Sarandon.
I remember seeing the movie in the movie theater, and then I was like, can I do something bad so I have to get a legal defense? And it's an older woman who realizes she needs to take care of me because I'm not supervised enough by my actual parents.
I think that you could probably, from our conversation, pinpoint the exact date of our birth. You know what? We're going to segue into the actual reason that we're here, which is Tegan and Sara's new book, right? And we have a whole plate of activities planned, from conversation to interactive book reading. There will be audience participation, multimedia. But first, could you just introduce us to your book?
Yeah, so Crush, if you have somehow stumbled into this room and have no idea what's going on, is the sequel to Junior High, which was our first foray into graphic novels. And we're really so grateful that our first foray was with Tilly Walden, who is just an unbelievable cartoonist and illustrator, and is also a twin and gay, and was the first person our publisher suggested be our collaborator. So we're wishing her a happy pub week as well. And I think Junior High we had been sort of told by the publisher to try to take our high school story and modernize it and make it a bit for a younger audience, but with Crush we were free to do whatever we wanted. And so I'd say it's kind of still autofiction in the sense that we do pull a ton of adult storylines from our career and make them for a younger audience, but we got to truly use our imaginations and write a lot of characters and storylines that did not pull directly from our life, and it was really fun. And similar to the first book, we wrote it like choose your own adventure. So Sarah would write a few chapters and then send it to me, and I would be completely surprised by what she had delivered to me because we never used a structure or an outline. We're just like
We had, but the interesting thing is we had actually, we had sold high school, our memoir, and we were working on high school when this graphic novel opportunity sort of presented itself. So for a long time, we were really focused on our actual story and we were writing our memoir. By the time we started working on junior high, it was actually the pandemic had just started and had been really like this process of years of like delving into archival materials, talking with our friends. I mean, really sort of like disappearing back into that time and really immersing ourselves. And there was something really freeing about working in current modern times and thinking about the story with less, rigidity. Like we were like, we can kind of have fun with it. But we were, to be fair, we weren't totally structureless. We knew where the kids were going to start and we knew where they were eventually going to end, which was helpful.
Was it pleasant? Was it fun to go back into that time? It's kind of like a very famously fraught time.
yeah.
Was that fun? And also my follow-up question is when you were working on it together, were you ever surprised with what the other person would come up with? You're like, wait, that's how you interpreted that thing that happened?
Well, I'll tackle fun. Junior high sucked. Like it was horrifically bad. A lot of people when we put out high school were shocked that we wanted to revisit high school because that was their terrible time. But for Sarah and I would say junior high was a much more difficult time for us. Luckily, when we pitched junior high, so we'd already sort of agreed to do the series, but when it came time to actually work on it, I created a PowerPoint presentation for the publisher, like with photos of us from that era and storylines, and I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, just like fail forward, you know what I mean? And they were horrified because our middle grade experience was full of terrible, scary things. I won't say because I know there's kids here, but I was like truly just trying to I thought we were writing high school, but for junior high.
Yeah.
I clearly have some comprehension issues. I didn't understand like writing a book for 8 to 12-year-olds, I guess. So that's a very long way of saying I don't think I had to really revisit junior high, thankfully, but obviously in writing the book, I did remember a lot of things from junior high. It was a tough time. I'm really honest about the fact that we went to a really rough junior high in a rough area. We are far from perfect kids. It was a complicated time. It's a terrible age, especially for girls. There was a lot of bullying and meanness. Some of the storylines, especially from junior high, about the friends fighting with each other and all that stuff, that's all really real. I think the thing I didn't think about when we were writing either of these books was how people from that time would feel. Whereas with high school, I was very, very focused on how people we knew would feel. But I'm so disconnected from that time and group of friends, I didn't really consider it. We really only have one friend from that time period. And, they had a sad reaction to the book. But I still stand by the books. I think they're important. I think, as a musician and a public figure, we've really created a very shiny, happy, helpful, progressive image of ourselves, but we were once children and we were assholes too. Like, we're not perfect, And I think we were always sort of trying to measure out enough realness in the books to balance the fiction part of this. Like, we were obviously, anyway, I'm repeating myself, but like, it was hard to revisit it, but we didn't really actually have to revisit it in the same way as high school. I think that was harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in high school, when we were writing high school, I was in therapy and I was like, it was so hard. This was so fun. I found it to be really, it was more about the comedy and like the situational, like putting Tegan and Sara in these funny situations and trying to get a laugh. It just felt like we could be lighter with it. And I think that's also with a nod to knowing that it's going to be kids and
and that we don't have to get so deep. And actually, I think a lot of the depth of the books is really Tilly Walden and her illustrations. She's so incredible, and she added these really beautiful, heartfelt moments, really read between the lines of the script, and often found a way to sort of, I think, give it a little bit more texture than we had done in the script. I really was just like, I was so excited to just move away from like seriousness, and I think these books are a little more lighthearted. So
I think the whole time we were trying to make each other laugh, and we were like, what will adults who read this find in the book?
Yeah.
Because even though the age group it's aimed at is way younger, we were like, clearly lots of people in our age group are gonna read it, and so we buried a lot of.
I think that's smarter to do too, is to not write with such a narrow little audience that you're just making up anyway, right? I think you have to write from your gut, and then the editor will tell you, take out that swear word. They can't do that or whatever, so.
Yeah, we also felt like this age group, like the truth is that it was preteens, like it was kids younger than this book was aimed at that were reading it, and they were discovering it and feeling like, ooh, I'm reading something for kids who are a little bit older.
Totally.
Like, and that was fun too, because as like 10-year-olds were coming up to us to get to sign the books, and
Yeah.
they were.
I was kind of confused when our publisher was like, "This, we're gonna tour grade, like do some readings in schools for like grade 7s." And I was like, I was reading
Stephen King.
Well, Stephen King, I read.
Flowers in the Air.
Yeah, I was about to say, no, I was reading like Planet the Cave Bear, and I was like forging notes to get like anti-nausea drugs so that I could feel tripped out in my grade 7 and 8 class. So like I was like, really, grade 7s are gonna want this book? And I remember our first class visit to a grade 7 class, and it was all girls, which is just terrifying. And we sort of walk into the room, and we get introduced by the one of the administrators, and I just was like, I've played in front of, I don't know, we walked on stage in front of 90,000 people opening for Lady Gaga. We played on the Academy Awards. We've done some really terrifying things, and sitting in front of these grade 7s, I was dripping sweat. Like I was.
Oh yeah.
They couldn't have given less fucks about me and Taylor.
You're just a person that showed up.
Yeah, they were like, what's your stupid cartoony book? What shit is this? And like,
All of you have chosen to be here.
yeah, like these kids were like, I think we won them over. And there was some, no we didn't. And I'll tell you how I know we didn't. Because at one point in our bio, they had said, you know, they had riffed on some of the things that we had done. And at some point, once we were done our pitch, which is so depressing to me when I think about it now, and then we opened the floor up to questions, and one of the girls was like no one lifted their hand initially, and then you could see the teachers were like, someone asked a question. So they give the microphone to this girl, and she's like, so you guys know Taylor Swift? Yeah. And we were like, yeah, so I mean, I think for these purposes, like, would Taylor, if I saw Taylor on the street, would she know me? No. If I said, Taylor, remember me and my sister Tegan, she'd be like, sure. But
She's like, no, we're best friends.
but I just said, absolutely, we know her. And then somehow it came up like, who do you like better? Because they're girls, they're teenage girls, so they have to make it like a competition.
Say a generalization like that.
I think I can say it, and if you know what, it's Sarah, and if you have a problem with this, Tegan does not agree. But they were like, who do you like better, Katy Perry or Taylor Swift? Which I was like, you little rascals. Yeah. So I said honestly, I am a new parent, and I like to drink wine, and you know, I'm pretty opinionated, and I get a little background on me. I said, you know, kind of Katy Perry is a better hang, you know, she's just a little more like, you know, a little wild and whatever.
I was like, get me the F out of here.
The sound that came out of their little bodies, like they were like, oh my god, what? Like, they were like, they hated my guts because I said I wanted to hang out with Katy Perry and with Taylor Swift. I love Taylor. Taylor's great. Listen, the truth is, Taylor and Katy don't want to hang out with me, neither of them. So it doesn't matter, you know. It's just more of a thought exercise.
You know, you're so desperate for something in that moment for like to keep these kids on board. And what a
I thought it was fun. I thought if anything, like I knew they weren't gonna like me or think I was cool, but at least they would respect me later for my honesty. But they didn't. And then as soon as we probably walked out of that room, they were like, "You'll never think about us again." We were just two old ladies who rode through town, tell them about our dumb little picture book, you know? Like, they don't give a crap.
Back to the book. I have to say that I was in my feels, as they said, you know, because there's parts in this book. I am also from Calgary. I am also about your age, almost exactly, and there's sort of any Calgarians, like, yeah, Calgary Hive, myself. Divine Decadence, Peter's Drive-Thru,
Yes.
Lloyd's, I think, is in there. All these sort of like very Calgary touchstones, and I just have to say that you've been I've known of you for a very long time because you were famous in Calgary, and I would see you guys with your guitars getting in your mom's car, I assume, because my mom worked downtown, and I would be down there sometimes and just see you kind of doing your thing. Like, there are those girls. Oh my God, I saw them. So this is just amazing to see the book Calgary on the page, represented and not sort of anonymized. And you've done that also in your show, the adaptation of high school. So yeah.
I think, well, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but we grew up in a time when there was a short window. Like, I wouldn't presume to know what it was like prior to me being a teenager or what happened when I left Calgary, but I think the window of time where we were preteens and teenagers, it was quite alternative and progressive in Calgary, at least in the bubble we were in. You know, we went to Crescent Heights, which was close to downtown. We spent a lot of time on Stephen Avenue Mall, places like the Attic and Divine Decadence. Like, we were living in sort of a rave, alternative, grunge world, and it felt pretty progressive.
Yeah.
And so I think it's still been a source of inspiration for us too. Like, there's no question, like, for example, when we adapted High School for television, there was no question that we wouldn't just, not only would we set it in Calgary, it had to be filmed in Calgary. That was part of our pitch, was that it should be made in Calgary. And, you know, it's a character in itself. It's a really interesting place, and it made us. And also
It
the
has a
joy
lot of
of
character.
it has a lot of character.
The joy of being a kid is that you don't know that there's places that might be better than where you live, you know? When we were, maybe in high school, I started to sort of, like, those thoughts started to creep in, like, maybe I would want to live in Vancouver, maybe I could like loosely imagine traveling, you know, like those kinds of things. But at this age, like in middle school, like, life for me was Calgary, and it was the places, the only thing I knew was at 14, maybe I wanted to be hanging out with my friends and jumping on the trampoline more than I wanted to be hanging out at my grandma's, you know, or whatever. And that was it. Like, that was the binary that I was choosing between, was, you know, wanting to be where I felt safe and comfortable, which was with my family, and I loved being with them, and then all of a sudden wanting to, you know, be with my friends more than that. Like, I wasn't thinking like, well, Calgary, boring. Like, I wish I lived in New York City. What the hell was I gonna do in New York City at 13 years old? Like, you know. So did you think about leaving town? Like, what did you think?
When I lived there?
Yeah,
Oh,
when you were a young
yeah.
person.
But I now have so much more empathy, and I love going back there. And, you know, I think to the point of Attic Corrosion, which was this cool punk space, coffee shop, patchouli, like the floor was like splatters of paint.
It was so cool.
Record store, like there was just enough of these strange places, and I'm really actually glad that it wasn't endless. There weren't, you actually had to dig around and try to find these little places where you felt you were touching alternative culture, and there was just enough then. And the weekly, I'll fast forward weekly and all that.
Yeah, it's weird when our career finally started and we started traveling around the world. Most people didn't obviously know Calgary. If they did, they'd be like, "Oh, the Stampede!"
Yeah.
Like, you know, that was pretty much it. But I even remember as a young person feeling a lot of pride at like how there were these really amazing alternative spaces. I mean, I can take no credit for it. Our mom found all of them. I mean, she was super young when we were in junior high. She would have been in her early 30s.
Yeah.
They
Which
also,
seems
I mean,
impossible. But
just in terms of fashion, you know, when we were talking about this a couple nights ago, you know, here we are right on the precipice of being the kinds of teenagers that are like, "Mom, you don't know anything, like, get away from me." I'm wearing a Montreal Canadiens shirt because my stepdad, he loved the Montreal Canadiens, so I did. Tegan's wearing there is no difference, which was,
the t-shirt that
Apparently the only shirt I wore.
yeah, she apparently wore it a lot. But it's from the Calgary Sexual Assault Center, and it had on the back, it had all the things that no, like basically no means no, and all the ways that you could tell someone no, you don't want to, get down.
We get it, we know it.
And so I'm wearing a Take Back the Night t-shirt over here. That was my mom's. Like, we were right on that edge where we wanted to be with our friends, and we thought we were cooler than everybody.
And so then our mom was buying us
Yeah, but
onesie
here was
pajamas.
we were still so impressionable. We still thought our parents were cooler and smarter than us. And I just want to point out for everyone that this photo in the black and white, this is one of those yearbook photos where you get, you're in your special club. This is twins. We are with the other twins. And the boys sitting just behind us, that's Jeff and Brad, and they were the almost youngest kids of a Mormon family of 13 who lived next door to us. And then these gentlemen beside us, this was, what was the names again?
Sterling and Jonathan.
Sterling and Jonathan, and Tegan dated 3 of 4 of them. She dated Jeff, Brad.
Sarah said this the other night and I corrected her, but now she's got the laugh, so I'll let her have it. But I didn't actually date.
You dated
I
both
dated
years.
one in each twin, but then I did date the younger brother of Jeff and Brad as well.
You know the parents, the teachers were laughing their butts off.
Oh, yeah.
The twins are dating the twins in the twin club.
I just
Like,
had a moment where I was like, I should write a book of essays about boys I dated in school. Like I dated a guy named Keegan.
Right? You never forget this age. I could name every single classmate I've ever had.
And
like
a
there's
phone
just like that
Yes.
time that you never forget these kids' names.
We're learning, it's like, what was the difference between the 1980s and now? We knew everybody's phone number, and
Yeah.
we'll never forget their first and last name and where they lived and what their parents did for a living.
How many brothers and sisters?
Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, we made this a huge jump too. Like, the thing that I thought was really interesting about working in the sort of middle grade space was that there's just such a profound difference between who you are when you start junior high, middle school, whatever you call it, and when you leave. It just, when I look at these, this is grade 8, we're about to go into grade 9, and I just think, wow, like in 4 years we are graduating high school. In 5 years we're flying to New York to play David Letterman, and we're touring around the world. Like, we were kids. We're in onesie footy pajamas up there. Like, man, it is just so crazy. And maybe it's because of getting older and the sort of compression of time. Maybe it's being a new parent, but I just can't believe how big of a difference like a year of your life can make. And that's why I think that, revisiting these stories and these moments from this time, they have so much value in our culture, because they can affect the way that you make friends. Look away if you have to.
Okay.
They can make such a difference.
No idea why that happened, but I think it was the presentation was like, you're going too long.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yes. We're gonna move on to the next phase.
We're gonna act. How are you feeling about it? Do you feel
I feel
regretful?
great. I have my script.
Okay.
So helpfully printed out, and we are going to.
We're gonna read from a chapter called No More Drama, which we had to move past, but briefly, because I know the book just came out and some of you may not have read it, but in Crush, if you guys remember from junior high, Tegan and Noah had a falling out because Noah hadn't really come to Tegan's defense and had chosen the mean friends, and Sarah's crush and best friend had gone away to summer camp, and so the book sort of opens with both Tegan and Sarah struggling because they are feeling very distant from their crushes, and so the scene we've chosen is when Tegan reunites with Noah, and
I reunite with my best friend Rashini.
yeah, and so we're going to ask for 2 volunteers from the audience to come up and read the parts of Roshini and Noah. Sarah's going to be in charge of choosing. You guys can be me too if you prefer. I'm happy to play somewhere else. Yeah, come on here. Okay, and then we need one other person. Okay, yes, please come on up. It looks like you had to be forced.
Yes.
You think that's going to be fun? Everyone loves it when the audience participating is forced to do it. I love it. Okay, great. And Brian, who's going to give you a microphone? Should we all stand so we're all on
Yeah, let's stand
up. I think it works better. Narrator, you can stay seated because you're just narrating. Hi. Okay, hold on. You're going to play Noah. So you and I will be acting out this scene together, and then you're gonna play Roshini. And then Jillian, you're playing the narrator and drama teacher.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna start us out. Everybody ready?
Yes. Yes.
School auditorium. Day. A teacher stands on stage in front of a group of students. The atmosphere is relaxed, with bright straight stage lights and the soft murmur of excited students. All right, welcome to drama. Let's do a little warm up. I want you all to howl at the moon like wolves. Oh, great, excellent. Now we're all gonna get into pairs. We're gonna do trust falls. Let's see. Evan, you with Samira. Talia, Clover. Tegan, Noah. Pair up. Walter, Tim, Jane, Pete. Tegan and Noah as they exchange nervous but determined looks, ready to trust each other in this exercise. The scene, I think there was a typo there. The scene transitions
I
to
used ChatGPT.
the scene transitions to the trust falls. Tegan and Noah stand facing each other a bit awkwardly.
Let's get cracking.
Please don't drop me.
Why do we do that?
Tegan and Noah prepare for the trust fall.
We did it in Seattle. Yeah.
All right, you're the one trusting.
Yeah. Okay. You want me to go first? You trust me?
I know you would never drop me, or did you?
They exchange a meaningful look, hinting at some past tension between them.
You kind of did.
You're right. I'm sorry, TB.
A lot of people refer to me that in the book.
Tegan gets into position to fall into Noah's arms. She starts to fall back, and Noah catches her easily.
That looks really natural.
There's a moment of relief and reconnection.
Now I understand why you're being forced to come out here.
Perfect. Switch.
The scene cuts to them switching roles, with Tegan catching Noah this time. They both laugh. The tension easing a bit. Sarah sitting with Roshini in a hallway, leaning against the lockers. They're talking, and the atmosphere is relaxed.
When's your first soccer practice?
Today, I'm freaked out, honestly.
You, soccer star Roshini, you'll do great. I know it.
Aw, you're sweet, Sarah. My legs feel out of practice.
Your legs are perfect.
But I did play a lot of kickball at camp.
Sounds fun.
Have you ever been to camp?
No, Tegan was always too nervous to be away from our mom. True story.
That's so cute.
Was camp lonely ever?
Not really, because I had Lola.
Is she your best friend?
She's my camp best friend.
Oh, okay, cool, cool.
She's so funny.
Sarah's cell phone buzzes.
What's up?
It's nothing.
Tegan and Noah are sitting together. Tegan's cell phone buzzes. Tegan pulls out her cell phone and looks at it.
Who keeps texting, TB?
It's just our manager reminding us to practice.
I love your new songs.
How did you hear them?
Your tryouts online. Is ex-friend about me?
Would you be mad if it was?
No way. I'm your #1 fan, remember?
Okay.
Back to Sarah and Roshini.
I saw your tryout online. Everyone was sharing it.
Did you like the new songs?
I liked Killer Bee best. The line, this long distance is so vicious.
Roshini pulls out a friendship bracelet. She hands it to Sarah.
I made this bracelet for you at camp. I thought about you all summer.
I thought about you too.
They look at each other, googly eyes.
Yay, give a big round of applause. Okay, wait. Sorry. Hold on. Jesus. Sorry.
Yes.
Now I know what's happening next though. Okay. I'm ready.
Are we composed from
We're
that?
composed, yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen? Okay. So the next part, we're going to watch a video, I think, of your first, so in the book, there was a songwriting performing contest.
Yeah.
You actually won that contest.
That's such an eloquent, articulate way you described a battle of the
I'm
brands.
so sorry, yeah, I'm a nerd.
That was awesome. We did want to use something from our real lives, which was, this seminal experience of winning this competition in high school, which really launched our career. I mean, we won it, and it was like, it was just life changing. I mean, it was so incredibly difficult to focus on the end of high school anyway. But then on top of that, we were doing press and photo shoots, and really launching our career, soft launching our career. And we wanted to sort of tackle some of those anecdotal things that had happened to us in this book, but we didn't want it to be, we couldn't soft launch Tegan and Sara. They're 11 turning 12. Well, they're 12 turning 13.
Yeah.
So we, in the book, they lose. They don't win the competition, but it does provide an opportunity for them to experience some of the things that we did, like shopping for your first photo shoot, experiencing, comments and bad reviews online, things that we really legitimately had to navigate as young people. Or like, we're gonna play this video, like one of the funny things, this was Sarah who chose to have young Tegan and Sara lose the contest, which I was like, that's very on brand for Sarah.
So you're revising history to make it work.
Yeah. It's sort of like one of those sliding doors. Like, what would have happened? Would we still be Tegan and Sara if we had won that competition? Would we have still? I mean, it's really true. It gave us such a boost of confidence, and it did truly inspire us to pursue music as our post-high school career. But when Sarah suggested it, I loved that idea. I thought it was a really dramatic and really sweet way to sort of start the book, especially keeping the audience in mind, which we were. You're not going to necessarily start a band and then like 2 seconds later play a contest and win and become an influencer or whatever happens now. But so it was really fun to explore that. But in doing that, we also found this hilarious and kind of devastating clip of us. This is a few days after we won the contest.
It's springtime and high schools in Calgary and crops are starting to turn toward final exams, graduation, and summer jobs. But for 17-year-old twins, Sarah and Tegan Quinn, their thoughts are starting to turn toward a career in music. This is where it all began 2.5 years ago, writing songs and learning how to play guitar. And it might have stayed here if the twins hadn't entered Garage Wars, an annual fight to the finish between rockers and punk bands.
We're like 2 little 17-year-old kids sitting up there and saying what we want to say, and we don't have nothing to hide behind. And maybe that's what the difference is that, the music industry, getting up on stage, going in front of people you don't know, saying things that you wrote down to yourself, that's very, very, very intimidating.
They earned higher marks than any band in the 7 years of Garage Wars. It's something they find a little overwhelming, but it's very exciting.
Precious, but you can imagine, like there was a good portion of my adulthood where a clip like that would have sent me over the edge.
Yeah, but do you have a little bit more sympathy for those girls now?
I think so. Like again, the exercise of writing both high school and now junior high and Crush has allowed us to go back and sort of excavate a bit and reprocess a lot of what happened in our career at the beginning because, most people you have time to become an adult and we were sort of thrust into an adult world really quickly after this. Within a few months we were, talking to every major label in Canada, we were traveling for music, we got an agent, we were being interviewed by grown men who were having to sit down with us and say, so, what are your songs about? Do you have boyfriends? It was just like unbelievably uncomfortable and awkward, and I don't know where the confidence that I see in that video came from, but we weren't shy. We weren't we're certainly not wallflowers, but I think we internalized a lot of the discomfort we felt and the unknowns. Everyone else pretty much we knew was following a more traditional path and going to university. There was a little
Getting
more,
ready for college.
yeah, like there's a little more incubation or something that's happening, and we were like within a year of going to Europe and putting on shows for, and you know, having meetings with record companies with no adult supervisor. And it's just, that seems wild to me now.
It gives me a little more empathy too for the generation of artists that are becoming successful and famous now, because I think the further you get away from that part of your career, it can be really easy to, I don't know, like, you know, to sort of cast aside, like, oh, you know, you don't know what you're talking about, or, you know, oh, you're overwhelmed now, wait till you know, do it for another 20. Like there, I feel like you can do this kind of, it can be easy to sort of like forget how overwhelming it was, even at this age. And so when I see, what Tegan sees as confidence, I see as anxiety. Like when I think about these CBC guys with their big cameras showing up at our high school and filming us, I see, I mean, I don't think we're Chapel Roan, but you know, I see that nervous energy of the newly anointed and the newly observed and criticized, and you know, and I have a lot more empathy because I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember what that really felt like at that age without any experience.
I just remember being around that age, and that really just, I'm just so curious of, that's your fantasy, that's a lot of fantasy coming true. Like people that age are often, I remember just, for example, you know, being obsessed with Much Music, and you're like, oh my God, what if I worked at Much Music? You can almost believe you worked at, like you can taste it, you can imagine it, you would have been, it's a fantasy. And that really came true. I was sort of curious, or was it a fantasy for you, or?
It was, and I just was gonna, just to tag on to the Chapel Roan thing, it is a fantasy, and when you get your first little experience of it, some people, I think, bloom and love it.
Yeah.
And my first taste of it, because I wanted it. I wanted to be on Much Music. I wanted to be a rock star, is what I would have called myself back then. And I didn't like it. Like that was my first experience was like, oh, I don't like this. I feel out of place, or I feel embarrassed, or I feel overwhelmed. And so I really do empathize with people who get that first sort of burst of success and think, oh my God, like this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
And I do think that's why we spend so much time in Crush showing both sides of the coin. You know, you see Tegan through the book really embracing, we get a manager and we do a photo shoot and we make a music video, and I think that's very much me, or it was just very, you know, racing forward and so excited, and
We're doing the thing.
we're doing it. And I think for Sarah, even at that age, she was worried, nervous, anxious. She externalized more of those feelings that I was internalizing, and so we really wanted to reflect those in the book. And a big thing for us in the book is just, especially in this day and age, there's so much pressure on everyone, but especially young people. They're contrasting and comparing themselves to their friends online 24/7, and there's no break from it. And we just have this culture that's obsessed with being famous. We're all performing for each other all the time, you know. Here's how I put on makeup, here's how I make pasta, you know, here's how I train my dog, like here's my favorite artist, here's my opinion on absolutely everything, including things I know nothing about. And it's just a lot. And I think we wanted to showcase in the book, I don't want to ruin the book because I know you're all going to race home and read it, but you know, we wanted to showcase that it's okay for kids, when presented with these opportunities and this excitement, to say no.
Yeah.
I can't
have their parents
Yeah.
say, maybe we hit the brakes a little bit.
Maybe you can't go to that concert on a Wednesday night, was it, Amanda?
That's a bigger conversation though, that I agree, just even like, this is a little off, but like Simone Biles saying, no, I don't actually have to go to the Olympics.
Yes.
I like think about that all the time now as an adult. Like you actually can say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is gonna sound
Yeah.
deranged because we're literally our own bosses, but the other day I emailed our management because they sent a press schedule for here when we came for TIFF a few weeks ago, and it was like starting hair and makeup at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And I was like, didn't I become a musician so I don't have to get up early? Like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
I'm fine not doing breakfast TV, no. And you know, and they were like, yeah, sounds good, don't do it. But it's like I'm like 44. But I wanted to go back to your Much Music comment because we do have a little clip of our first music video here, and say that
I agree with Sarah, we wanted to be rock stars, but we didn't even know what that meant, because we had no example of that, because any band we knew of was so famous. It was like Michael Jackson and
and Canadian too. It's
yeah,
just like
I had no idea what that even meant, and so getting on Much Music was a complete unknown. It was like trying to imagine life after death or something. And we made this first music video, which I feel like we had very little participation in. We just kind of showed up and performed. And then it came out and like nothing happened. We did not chart, we did not become famous, nobody saw it. And one guy saw it because I ran our early email address. Like we got an email address when we got out of high school. And it would take an eternity to log in to our email address, and it was upstairs in my mom's part of the house. And I would get up after she went to work and I would literally have to wait like 20 minutes, I swear to God, for the internet to connect and like for an email to come in. And it was one guy who had seen us premiere our video. And he hated it. And when I think about the amount of work that went into like him seeing the video and then finding our email address, how would he even have found our email address? I don't even know. Did he have to like take off work or get like a carrier pigeon? Our first hater. It was so old school. Like, how did he find our email address? So then he like emailed and he just was like, you know, I was intrigued by you guys when I saw you introduced. But your new video is just, I hate it, you've already sold out. Like, it's just like, and then I took the time to write it back, you know? It was like, respond, and that probably took forever to like just get to the second page where you can write back. But yeah, I remember just like having this idea of what it would be like to have your first big video release, and it's just like some guy just being like, I don't like it.
yeah, like the other thing better.
You can do better next time, I hate you. We're only gonna watch 30 seconds.
Sit down, baby. Gonna be a phone dressed up, baby. But we decide wanna go downtown. How do you and me, we go get wasted. Why don't we all wasted? Please excuse me. You have to excuse me. It's for our first time. My definition of great sweetness, but it quietly becomes strong so early. Can't believe it. They can't believe it. They go from kindergarten to killing springs. They go from heartache to inner peace. Feelings 100% see, he said, let's leave this between you and me. My cat's always my stuff, leave my house between you and me.
Thank you. I have two thoughts about that. Thank you. The first, I didn't remember this, but our outfits, we were talking about the
They're
video.
cool.
Yeah, so
that
we don't,
one with the slits.
do you know where that's from? This is just unreal. I didn't even remember this because the other day we were talking about the video and I'm like, we had no input from what I remember in it. Like I was like, they probably just had a stylist there. It was like, where are these clothes? I just remembered those outfits are from the YTV Achievement Awards.
Amazing.
We got a YTV Achievement Award, and then we wore them in the video. So that's a whole thing. And the second thing is, why am I rapping?
Of the time.
Right.
Of the time.
It takes listening to it in front of an audience for me to remember why we don't play anything off our first album.
It's one of the things though that I find really fun about, you know, working in this format. Like in the book where we talk about the video, we're clearly working through these issues. Like, you know, it's
This is like a therapy book for us.
What is it like to self-mythologize a little bit?
I mean, I'll say this, I've really thought about this idea that there is just something very distorting about being a public figure and making art, because we have spent over 25 years letting other people tell us, like, this is what this art is, and this is where it sits in the kind of canon, and this is what they look like, and this is what they sound like. And I think that I'm sure if both of our wives were here, they would say this, but like, I don't like to be misunderstood, and it's one of the things that I find deeply challenging. And for 25 years, I have felt that our public record is sometimes right, sometimes wrong, but you know, you just kind of have to live with it. And there is something beautiful about just getting to say, look, this is just one version of it, but here is a version of these like seminal experiences that launched our career. You know, here is what it felt like to be gay in 1995 in Calgary, you know, or whatever. Like there is something about just setting the record straight, because for 25 years,
I've only really got to say, a couple of, you get quoted in an article, but it's really still the perspective of the journalist, and you get a couple of pull quotes, but that's it. And there is desire to just say like, well, for the record, this is how we felt, or this, for the record, this is how it
Which,
went
by
for
the way,
us.
we chose these 3 sections to focus on because, winning that battle of the bands launched our career. The photo shoots, all that press, making music video, like we understood at the time how lucky we were.
Yeah.
Like there was like a horseshoe lodged in each of our intestines, and we understood that. I've seen thousands of bands better than us launch and fail. And I'm deeply appreciative that all these years later that we still make a living doing this, and we work our butts off. Like I'm not in any way just saying it's luck, it's a combination of many things that allowed us to survive. But I knew that then, and it prevented me from expressing how much fear and anxiety and depression at times and judgment that I felt. And I'm so inspired by this new generation in general, but specifically artists and musicians who are speaking out about how it feels to be in the public, how it feels to be exposed, how it feels to do their job. I don't know if it's going to help or change anything, but I really appreciate the power and bravery that it takes to do that, to truly go out and potentially harm your career, to say, I'm at my breaking point, because we never felt like we could do that. We toured through heartbreak and death and financial loss and whooping cough and strep throat and hating each other, and we never felt like we could say no. And I'm really inspired by people who are saying no. And this book isn't a no, but I do think the revisiting of these big, huge moments in our career and modernizing them. Tegan and Sara, their friend group, their mom, everybody is saying to them things I wish somebody had stepped in and said to us. And not in a, I wish someone had said, like not in a dramatic movie way. I just mean like, man, it would have been meaningful if someone had come up and not said, you're living your dream. If they'd said, is this your dream?
Yeah.
Is this what
Which
you want?
hopefully is a message for the broader public too, because I think like there's so much pressure on all of us, like whether we're launching our career or we're, whatever, playing soccer or whatever it is that we're doing. Weird, I don't know, I'm thinking of like kids. I just had this like really long TikTok about this kid who like, it wasn't soccer, it was basketball. He's like 11, and I swear this kid is like, someone help him, like he has to play basketball like 6 hours a day. Anyways, I was like, oh, it seems exhausting. Do I have to do this with my kid? Oh Lord, I hope he has no talents, anyway, it's already so tired by activities, but I do see this pressure on kids and adults alike where we want to look a certain way, we want to sort of present ourselves in a certain way. And in the beginning of our career, I didn't necessarily feel like we were relatable, like our experience wasn't relatable, but the older we get, our experience and our fatigue and burnout with social media and the industry and all of these things, it doesn't feel so different than what I think everyone is going through, because we're all using the same tools now. Like before it was like, it was hard to say to people.
Well, before we had a music video and no one else did, and now everyone is singing on TikTok and
That's
dancing.
true,
So we're all in a boy band together now, and
It's true.
That's a really big difference from how it actually happened to the book. So, like, because, for example, in the book, Tegan and Sara are always filming backs BTS content and like sort of always thinking about the content that needs and the pressure for content, and they're kind of watching their phones to see when the thing drops and what people are saying, and that must have not have been as much of a factor when you were, as it actually played out. Was it sort of just getting into the imagining how?
No, because that's how it is now for us.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it was so easy for us to drop into, like, I was so worried, oh, are we going to be able to relate to a younger audience? But like, actually, this is going to sound really weird, but a lot of our problems and our stresses at work are the same stressors that kids with cell phones have. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, because we are essentially, we are being driven, our whole marketplace right now in the music industry and entertainment in general is being driven by the algorithm. We are being driven by digital landscape, and it's the same thing. It's like, how many likes did you get? Oh, you're putting your tour on sale, and did anybody see it, and paying for ads, and this band's more popular than me, and oh, I don't
we just did a photo shoot. Do we look 10 years older? Like, you know, like we're having.
Oh my god.
No, but seriously, that's the same stuff that when I talk to my friends whose kids are like in middle school or, you know, or they're talking about getting them cell phones and they're like, oh, I'm so worried that they're going to be able to see these things that are going to make them feel bad about themselves. And so actually in a lot of ways we are suddenly sort of having this intersection with like the public again where I'm like, oh my god, I totally know what people are freaking out about. Like before I could almost ignore things like Facebook and I could ignore the DSPs because I was like, I don't know, we're like out doing something different. Well, now that's our world too. It's our workplace too. And so like for getting into like little Tegan and Sara's heads, like in the book, it's very authentic. Tegan wants to do everything that their manager wants them to do, like create behind the scenes content. And Sara just wants to flirt with her best friend and like do homework. I mean, that's like how we are now, you know, like, except that Tegan wants to do BTS content, and I'm like, I have to go and hang out with my 2-year-old and go to the goddamn park again, you know, like, but like, I'm trying to create BTS content, like, so I do think that there's a real authenticity to like this kind of like conflict that's happening in the book because it's still happening right now.
One thing I think comics are so good at is sort of tapping into like, visceral emotion or something and kind of presenting different layers of information. Like I find I do is a lot of what you actually say might be slightly different from what you are thinking or doing or behaving. And that's a really interesting space that I think comics do uniquely well. So I'm wondering how crush, such a visceral thing, I'm supposed to ask you about who your crushes are at this point. This is supposed to be the segue.
I like this.
But like, yeah, like talk about writing that in the visceral nature of a crush.
I think this is where we relied so much on Tilly Walden. This is where having an amazing collaborator in that way really shone through.
Yeah.
You know, I think we lost this page, so I can't flick to it, which is now reminding me we should put it back in. But there's a really beautiful interstitial that happens after Tegan realizes her crush doesn't actually like her. And, you know, Tegan and Sara are sort of sitting in this netherworld, you know, talking about their emotions with each other. And, you know, Tegan's holding onto a broken heart. And it's just like, why does it feel this way? And there's something about seeing the visual of it, I think, that really captures that feeling of when you get your heart crushed or broken.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've tried to always use music to get that feeling across. I wouldn't know how to draw it. I would just be like, you know, but you know, I think writing about love and those, like there's another scene in the book or another moment where Tegan meets the crush, which is DJ Cucumber, and they're gonna have coffee with each other, and Tegan's never ordered coffee before and is so nervous and misinterprets DJ Cucumber. Wanting to, what the hell is her real name? I'm like, Cat. Cat wants to collaborate with Tegan and Sara, but Tegan misunderstands that this and thinks that Cat is interested in collaborating with Tegan, and like something like that on the page. I mean, I was desperately hoping it would feel like so cringe and so awkward, and just like a part of me is dying reading it. But yeah, it's all about your collaborator. Tilly had to find a way to draw that, you know, moment, and I mean, it's such a sweet and heartbreaking moment.
I've always loved comics and graphic novels, but in this, when we started working on these books, I thought a lot about Ariel Schrag and her books. And if you've never read any of her work, it's fantastic. But specifically, when she writes about this age, I remember being completely gobsmacked by, there was this one series of panels where she is looking in the mirror, and what she sees, like what she is, what we see, is so profoundly different than what she sees when she looks in the mirror. And I remember thinking how wildly, just like how the medium was so specifically perfect, because I remember feeling that way, like when my body changed in puberty, and I remember standing in front of the mirror, like I probably looked exactly the way that I'd always looked to my family, to my friends, but I felt totally transformed, hideous, disfigured even, you know. And I remember that feeling, and I remember reading those panels and crying, like sitting in I was like an adult, like 29 years old reading.
Sarah called me and was like, you need to get this book.
Yeah.
There's like one panel in particular that you're just gonna, and same thing. When I just looked at it, I was like, oh my god.
It just had such a huge impact. So it's such an honor to work with Tilly Walden because I think she does that too in the book. Like our script was one thing, but when we saw the way that she would sort of elevate some of what we were trying to get across with these beautiful, you know, I don't know, just like to me like so creatively incredible drawings. Like I would cry. Like sometimes I would be like, oh my god.
That's a great collaborator. It's somebody who's not just transcribing. They're like putting them so much of themselves into that it creates something totally new.
Yeah. I think it helps too. Like I don't subscribe to this idea that one like this is gonna maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say it. I'm saying it. I don't think Tilly had to be like a queer person to get. Like I don't subscribe to this idea that we couldn't have worked with somebody who didn't have a similar experience and she wouldn't have been able to do something just as profound. But I felt like Tilly was reaching across time or something too. Like she knew exactly how to capture it because in some ways she had felt exactly the same thing and had gone through a very similar thing. And I really feel that when I look at when I'm reading the book, like this isn't a person who's transcribing, it's a person who is adding texture and stuff in that even maybe I didn't feel or I could see Tilly in the story too.
Yes.
And I love that. Love it so much.
That's great.
Up on screen is Tegan wanted to include our first crushes. I wouldn't necessarily
We said serious
crush. I definitely have a lot of crushes, but this was my best friend and first secret girlfriend. And that's us in high school. We'd actually weren't together anymore, but I've been saying that one of the things
We weren't together anymore, like.
well, we were like even though we were closeted and we were like hiding our relationship, we were like normal teenagers who were like constantly breaking up because she would be like, now I'm dating this guy, and I'd be like, fine, I'm dating this guy, and then it was a very confusing time. Queer 90s, but anyway, one of the things I like about this book too is it's not just about romantic crushes, and it is trying to capture, like this to me was a friendship crush first and foremost. It was finding a person of all the people you could run into in your life, you find a person who you're like, wow, I just want to like tell you everything, and we would actually write letters to each other and then put them in duotangs, and then we would give it to each other once a week, and it would just be like filled with like 500 pieces of line paper with all of our thoughts and dreams and just talking to each other and getting to know each other, and it's made me realize that I was always exhausting, even since I was a teenager. Just first instinct to connect with people was to be completely exhausting. So I'm so glad I found her because she's still my best friend, and if I showed up with a duotang letters, she'd be so psyched. She'd be like, great. And my first serious crush was Jamie, and we were friends for years before we hooked up. And when I asked her permission to include her in this presentation, I texted her and said, hey, we're doing this book tour, and we're supposed to put a photo up of our like first crush, basically, or whatever. And she texts back, I was not your first crush. And that really sums up our relationship.
I must point out, you're both very lucky that you actually got to fulfill those crushes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I guess that's sort of what she was pointing out, is that we did it because the first handful of girls I liked, I probably was much too terrified to ever, I would have never even told her I liked her. Thank God for Jamie, because she was much more aggressive and assertive than I was. But I think that it was interesting writing about crushes for this age group, because I was like, again, it was that mind thing of we're writing for a book about junior high, but really writing it at way younger kids who are not, because what was happening in 7th and 8th grade would terrify anyone who has a kid about to go into 7th or 8th grade. And I think it's different now, mostly, but we were in an advanced situation, it feels like. It wasn't, by the way. No, we physically were not, but everyone around us, like 7th and 8th grade were life altering, like we'd come back from Disney World
wearing Epcot t-shirts, and I had spent $250 on stuffed animals at Disney World. And then say we show up to the first day of 7th grade, like junior high, and it's like everyone had like Gap sweaters cropped off, makeup, permed their hair, and we're like, which guy's the hottest? And it was just like,
Eight-ball leather jacket.
yeah, we were out of, like, they were smoking, like, fully looking up, and I was like, I just wanted to show people my cool stuffed animals. And our mom knew, by the way. She took us to Divine Decadence, and she offered to have us pierce our noses.
In the book.
Yeah, and was like, I want you to, like, you should be wearing overalls and Doc Martens, and we were like, no way. And so we like wore these like rayon blouses that my grandmother had given us.
That was your teen rebellion.
Yeah, and like Mickey Mouse sweaters, and the first day of school was harrowing. I mean, harrowing to say the least. And by, I think 8th grade, we'd sort of found our way, but I mean, there's photos I cannot put. I went through a whole Dexter Holland for the Offspring phase, like huge braids with like yarn woven into it, and I would wear like long johns with men's boxer shorts over top of them, and like,
we have 4 years.
I don't know how anyone, no wonder none of the girls I had crushes on liked me. They were just like, we've also, more importantly, there's a legacy of trauma in our family because our younger cousins who worshipped us, when we started junior high, we took them, we basically, that next summer, we took them all aside and we told them, like, whatever you can do to get out of junior high, like, don't go, you should never go. It's the worst time of your life. They're gonna be bullied, it's terrible. Like, we just, like, laid it on thick, and my cousins still to this day, like, they have, like, written accounts of, like, in their journals, like, saw Sara and Tegan today, I cried myself to sleep. I never want to go to junior high. They said I'm going to be bullied. Like, it's like a full record accounting of what we told them. But back then it was, it was the 90s, you couldn't tell anybody, like, it wasn't like she was going to go rat us out to her aunt. Her aunt would have been like, it's probably true.
You're like, suck it up.
Yeah, buck up. Like, now it would be like totally handled. I told this the other night that the last day of Christmas break in 8th grade, this is an upsetting story. I don't know if you should tell it.
Tell it.
Well, it's fine. This girl who we went to school with, who I was friends with, who I never had an issue with, was a tough girl though. Like, she was kind of in charge, And she called me and she was like, when you come to school tomorrow, I'm going to beat the living shit out of you. And I was like, why? And she said, you know why. And I hung up.
Yeah.
And I called my mom, and Sarah was like, Tegan's gonna be killed. And called my mom into the room, and we were like doing that, like just beside ourselves. And my mom was like, you're not gonna get beat up, go to school.
Yeah.
Like, that was, 90s were different, man.
It was different. It was a different time.
Yeah, and so I just went to school.
They're like, and it's also like, if you can't let somebody walk all over you, you need to punch them back.
Yes.
So to show them a little bit.
Yeah, or it would be like, or it would be like, my mom would, no, I'm not saying that she would, there was a little bit of like, well, but what did you do?
Yeah.
Like, there was a little bit of like, but what did you do to make her that upset that you're like, what are you getting yourself involved in?
Yeah.
Well, that was already in me too. I just laid in bed replaying everything I'd ever said or done in my entire life, like trying to think about what I'd done to irritate this person.
Yeah.
And I got to school and she came, I was by my locker and she came marching up to me and she grabbed me, like, grabbed my jacket and just pushed me up against my locker and she started laughing. She's like, I'm just joking around.
Yeah. But so like 80s.
Oh, so yeah. But here's dreams to all the kids that came to the event tonight. No, but here's the worst part is that it was like over for me, but then, the next person. This is what I was sort of getting at earlier. We were far from perfect. It's not like I was like, the game changes now. I'm gonna stand up for the next kid that happens to, and like, not on my watch. Like, we're gonna change things. I was just like, run, get out of the way,
Yeah.
Which, thankfully, none of that happened. Which did you like less, junior high or high school?
I did not like any of it. But I was thinking of junior high, since you were talking about how I always had just like a couple friends that we were like a tight-knit little group of three. Actually, I had two other friends in junior high, two other different friends in high school. But it was so funny because that little friend, and there was a small group of people where we're getting into like kind of alternative culture and weird music and like stuff like that. But it didn't express at all in your clothes yet. Like you look like a normal teen.
Interesting.
Or like a normal preteen, but like inside of you, there's something really changing.
Well, this goes back to your crush on Wednesday's boyfriend.
There you
I
go.
mean, there was a Wednesday inside of you ready to materialize.
Yeah, and so my crush at this time, and then we're gonna do some questions, was like a little Persian boy that just, I saw him and it just like thunderstruck. And I was obsessed with this person for like the next 6 years.
Did it ever happen?
We became friends, but like nothing ever happened.
Where is he now?
Who knows? In
Come on.
the
You got around the universe. Is it like
Calgary? I don't know.
Is it a type? Like, was it like? Because I feel like the first 2 girls I had serious crushes on, which actually happened. It was Heidi in grade 3, and then this girl Jordan at the beginning of high school, and literally you could take every person I've ever dated and lay them over top of who I was chosen.
It's kind of a type. Yeah, just like sort of
Process it here with everyone?
No, that's for another time. That's for my next book. If you want to read about what I felt like in high school, you could read the Super Read Magic Academy.
Yes.
So we are going to go to audience questions. I think we might only get a few. So do you have any plans to work on another autobiographical or semi-autobiographical book? If so, what era would you be the most compelled to focus on?
We are working on more material. We do right now currently have both a, not quite YA, but like a middle grade age chapter book and also something in the adult space that we're working on. And I have a feeling it'll all sort of always, I mean, I know this is common with a lot of writers, but you know, you're just gonna pull from your own experience. We just had this whole thing transpire where we moved really far away from our idea, purely into fiction, like unrecognizable fiction, and I lost the luster right away. For me, I think, I definitely think the motivation to make art, when we talked about this backstage, is I am interested in pulling things from me and having it for an audience. It doesn't matter to me how big the audience is, but it's gotta come from me and my experience, I think. So yeah, so we've got a few projects on the go and they will still pull from our lives, but I don't know that it's specifically an era of our lives. It's more of experiences, similar to like what just happened with our, like the documentary we have coming out with Fanatical. I think we want to pull significant events from our life and then write from there. It might end up being nonfiction, but it's definitely going to, I think, the source material, it has to come from something that happened to me, for me to be interested. I'm a narcissist, so. I don't know yet. I read this funny thing the other day about like you can't really write about your family and friends until, well, I think we've been really respectful of the people in our life. I sometimes wonder if Mom just texts me, she doesn't agree with you. What you just said. What did I say? I haven't even said it yet. You said that we've been respectful of the people in our lives. We could have written a way more scathing record of our adolescence, but out of respect for our mom, we left some of the gruesome details out. She doesn't believe us.
No, I think it's really tough. Like I wonder sometimes if, you know, if there's something more provocative that we can write, or at least I think sometimes I could write, but I definitely feel like I'm on that sort of, like I don't know if I can like upset my mom more than I've already upset her, or like I don't know if I can like not just my mom specifically, but like I even was thinking about music recently. Like I censor myself so much more. Every year I get older, I just censor myself more. I was so unafraid to say whatever I wanted, even though when I was young and I had all that brazen and that sort of like whatever, I also was just more confusing. So like it didn't sound like I was telling you like really intense things. But now I find it very hard to sit down and really say what I want to say. Like I'm afraid to do it.
There's something so different from maybe this kind of work where you've taken the time to process that, and then I think it's a really different process to make work to describe the mess that you're in currently.
Yes.
Because it's nothing is a process.
Yes.
You're actually trying to synthesize something from something that is actually happening to you now. Those are very different types of works.
Yes, I agree.
That's so interesting. That's totally, you just hit the nail on the head for me, certainly. Because, I mean, people would say it about music, like, you have your whole life to write your first record.
Yeah.
And then you have 2 years to write your second record, and you spent that 2 years on the road promoting your first record.
Yeah.
And that just was like word salad to me.
Mm-hmm.
But now, this deep into our lives and our career, it's true. Like, I desperately want to write about what it's like to feel like me now and live in the world and what all the big questions I have and the feelings I have. And for the first time in my life, I'm actually writing about other people because I can't even begin to figure out what to say.
I love both those types of works, but there is just something so powerful about that. You're in the mess and you're just trying to sort it out, and it might not be as clean a thesis at the end of it, but I really love work like that. Anyway, the second, and I think this is the last question, we're kind of winding up. With so much in common, sisters, musicians, and standing up for what is right, have you ever reached the point of, screw it, I'm done? If so, what has brought you back?
I mean, that definitely feels like our whole age group right now. I feel like every conversation I have is like, I want to quit, I don't want a job, I want a different job, what am I doing with my life? I feel like that's just being, and I understand acutely why there's the whole thing about midlife crisis. Like I'm like, oh yeah. I think because in the movies it's always a man and there's a sports car involved, so I was like, I'll never have that. And then I got my driver's license and now I'm like, do you want a sports car? And I'm definitely having a midlife crisis. Yeah, I definitely think about quitting. I don't think about quitting, but I think about, I've put a tremendous amount of energy into making things, and I'm always asking myself, like, which parts of it do I still enjoy? Am I still giving back? You know, who's my audience? What do I do if I have 5 years left, if I have 50 years left? Like, I'm asking myself those questions all the time.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the age I'm at, but also just, we talked about this earlier, mid-career moment. And we've been in that for 5 or 6 years now, where we've been transitioning out of being the kinds of artists who go out for 3 years straight and tour 300 days a year. But we don't want to be that kind of artist. I don't want to compete on that level. I don't have the stamina. I also think there's just an element to that level of focus and work and absence from your life that's extremely damaging to your life. And partly because we started writing books, and also that happened right before the pandemic. We've spent so many years now at home that there's, like I keep saying, your 20s are about survival, your 30s are about growing and foundation, and then your 40s are about, oh, I have my shit now, I don't want to leave it behind. And, you know, and I mean that about my family, my friends, my dog, my partner. You know, I also think I have always complained a bit about that my life is felt a bit one-dimensional, and it's not a criticism of anyone, but pretty much, you know, a lot of my interactions are, so are you on tour? So are you getting off tour? So how was the tour? So you have new music coming out? And I'm not, my life really was Tegan and Sara in the band. I'm not trying to imply that I had some secret cache of special interests and hobbies and language skills and other jobs, but I do think that I am, my universe internally is bigger than the one that I have externally, which is wild to say because my world has seemed huge. And I just have a really deep desire to explore and figure out if there's other things I'm interested in.
And sports cars.
Yeah, or, I mean, just basic stuff, like just learning other skills or experiencing life not as a member of this band, not as a semi-famous person. I just would like to maybe be ordinary for a while and learn some other things and experience the world differently, and also be able to come back to this world and appreciate it. You know, I think we're so lucky that we've had the career we have, and I'm so appreciative of the people who keep coming back and the new people who find us. And we're not going away. We have lots of work to do still, and lots to say, but I think that the constant focus on ourselves and the band, like, can't be my only focus. And I give Sara a lot of the credit for this. She had a kid, and that just automatically created a boundary. Like, she has to be there for him. She has to be home. She needs to experience those things. Every moment we're away, sorry, don't panic, but every moment we're away, he's experiencing new things, and she's missing that. And I don't want her to miss those things. And
This week I'm missing potty training and swim lessons, so I don't care.
I'm like, good luck, please. But I think that opened up a part of me that was like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
What am I missing? Like,
Yeah.
what world am I missing out on because I'm sitting in Des Moines in a Holiday Inn Express waiting to go play a show? And I don't mean to criticize the part of our job that is magnificent, which is being on stage and making art, but yeah, I need to figure out how to fill myself up without this. So
Yeah, sustainability, and also it's like, I kind of, just to wrap it up, I think you have an audience that is there for the journey. You know what I mean? That like you've cultivated that. Yeah. I guess and that's just a very great position to be in too.
yeah.
As you grow.
And we're thank you for that reminder. You're right. I think that we don't feel panicky because we've done a bunch of things outside the mainstream and really taken a left turn in the last 5 or 6 years. And it's proven that the community around Tegan and Sara is here for the whole process and the whole journey. And we're very appreciative, very, very, very appreciative of that.
We really are so appreciative of you, especially those of you who are our age, and I'm going to show some age preference right now. I think there's like this emphasis on, I mean, we did it too for a long time, like there's this real, like, young people, but more and more, and this really happened for me the other day. I heard Zadie Smith talking about how she's writing her books for people her age, and I was just like, me too. Like, I want to write things for people my age, and that feels really different. I don't know that I always thought I was writing for younger people, but I did feel like I had a sort of, I was focused on thinking about art and creativity and myself in a sort of dislocated from my actual life and experience and age. And right now I'm feeling very into being in my 40s, and I hate all this stuff on TikTok where people are like upset about turning like 30 or 35 or whatever. I'm getting fed a lot of that right now, and I am like, it is such a privilege to be older. It is such a privilege to get here. It is such a privilege to be here, and I'm just so grateful for all of you, and I hope, and I want you to all know, especially the older ones here, we know it's exhausting to come out into the public without a humans, and we know that you're tired, and you wish that this could happen earlier, and you wish that now we had a magic button where I could just make you at home and you're asleep, and I see you, and I'm glad you made it out. And
I also want to add that your questions were also amazing, and we're going to answer them all on Substack. So if you're not subscribed to our Substack, you should. But all the questions from tonight, all the book events, we'll answer them all on Substack. So thank you. There were so many amazing questions, and we really appreciate it. And a massive thanks to you, Jillian, for coming. You're so amazing. I can't believe you weren't friends with Calvary. I hope you can be friends now. Thank you so much. And thank you to Sarah. Thanks everybody for coming out. And that's the wrap. Thanks everybody. Thanks everyone.